and you find out that in order to have food, you need to pay for it. And so it's a means of access without having a have that access, that basic, and that's really what we stand by financial inclusion. So over time, the global development agenda with the World Bank and in Nigeria, our central bank, we've come to recognize financial inclusion as an enabler of everything. You know, so when you talk about the SDGs, the final one talks about partnership for the goals. So there's a need to have a collaborative approach and look at everything holistically, and it's triggered really by the access to financial services.
So someone listening out there, especially somebody who will think, okay, they're not talking about me, uh, financially included, if I will put it that way now, are there benefits that somebody can derive from included? Because you've mentioned access to financial services right now. So what benefits lie there for somebody who should be financially included?
So many benefits. So I'll look at it from the micro level. At the micro level, for example, one needs to be financially included. So when we talk about financial exclusion, I'll look at it. Nigeria has a target, or at least 95% of the population should be financially included. That means they should have access to at least any other benefits can flow from that. So what that means is, I'll give an example from a micro level again. During COVID, you find out that in developed countries who had fiscal space, there was an approach, there was a need to actually give resources to businesses, to individuals in order to survive. Um, so emphasis on having fiscal space. So if we wanted to take an action like that, you know, the best way of doing that would be through a bank account.
Bank account,
Yes.
yes.
So I happen to be in, and you know, even for students who had a bank account and were, you know, Americans, they were entitled to something from government. So that's why it's really important to have a bank account, because it's a way of, you know, being included, being having a say. You know, yeah.
So if that is the case, then what is the barrier, to this financial inclusion, especially here in Nigeria? You see what's going on now with the Naira redesign policy and the cashless policy of the government. People are not able to do financial transactions. You go to buy something, what are the barriers to financially included?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and it's pertinent. It's pertinent in our times now. So definitely some of the questions or the reasons are micro, and some are macro, some are systemic. It's a combination of factors. So I'll talk. Why should I have a bank account? Or I'm self-employed, I'm a trader, I deal in cash, so why should I have a bank account? And you find out that these are, so as a country, mobilize domestic savings. So I'm going to get to that, but looking at it again from the micro level, another reason is, so you charges, you have the VAT on the transaction, you have the session charge, all those charges, and but then perspective, and would say that when the cost of an item is high, then it's more likely to be a supply problem. So what it means is there's a demand from the populace to actually want to have an account. People want to be financially included. I don't see a reason why. I've not met anyone because I don't want to. So people want to be financially included, but again, it's a combination of different factors, individual circumstances. Means that there's an opportunity for financial service providers to particularly in the current circumstance, to maybe streamline the costs, for example, and then ensure that the quality of. So taking all of that into why are people not why I've listed the individual circumstance. People say, oh, I don't have a job and therefore I don't need to, which is not absolutely correct, because there's still a lot of benefits.
And sometimes people don't trust. Take my money there. Maybe when I want to use it now, I can't transfer the money. With banking infrastructure, these days people do transfers. Sometimes it takes days for for it to get there, or people get money transferred from their account. The merchant doesn't get value. There are trust issues, don't you think? Maybe.
Well, I wouldn't call them. Say that they are systemic issues, infrastructure issues, and certainly it means that there's an opportunity. Whenever there's a challenge, opportunity. So, for example, in the current circumstances we find ourselves, there's certainly an opportunity for touch and go payment systems. There's an opportunity for blockchain, for example, and we've seen increased volume of transactions for USSD. We've seen increased volume of transactions on POS machines, and that's certainly the way to go. During COVID, no one really wanted to get into physical contact with someone else. People didn't want to exchange cash. So why is it that now we are if you have transactions outside the banking, than if you have your funds in the system. So the NDIC actually to certain limits, and that's a factor in deciding to actually use the banking system rather than being unbanked.
Thank you so much, and we'll go to the phone lines right now. By CFA Society Nigeria, and it's a financial literacy program. Today we're talking about financial. My guest on the program is the team lead, strategy and governance in Financial Institutions Training Center, FITC. So you can call us now should you have questions about being financially included. You're having problems with it, you're facing some barriers. Services, you can call us now. The number to call 0817 313 6193. That's the number you can call here in the studio. 0817 313 6193. You can also send WhatsApp messages to that number to join the conversation right here. Any question you have about financial inclusion, you can ask our guest. From savings account to current account, to why you don't want to go to the bank, or why you have phobia. We will be ready to take those questions and provide answers while Ebuka is still here in the studio with us. One more time, 0817 313 6193. That's the number to call. So Ebuka, let's go now. Now that we have, would you think that these barriers can be overcome towards being financially included?
Yes, so I must emphasize that the authorities in Nigeria, there's been the percentage financially excluded has consistently diminished, and I'll take that. The percentage of financially included was about 44%. And by 2020 it's as high as 64%. So that shows some significant growth. And the target by the authorities, the central bank, is to achieve at least 95% by 2024. So there's progress, and there's room for more. For there's greater room for progress. Currently, in terms of Nigerians with a bank account, you're looking at about 55 million bank accounts. It's still a scratch of our adult population. Look at it from an adult population perspective, which is above 15 years. So there's significant room for improvement, and some of it is what we are seeing at the moment. I believe, I'm strongly optimistic that 6 months down the line, we would have being financially included, and there are a lot of um, when you look at developed economies, a large part of financial intermediation from banks, and banks would only able to will be banks will be able to achieve financial intermediation to the extent that they are able to have to mobilize deposits, and so the deposits in the banks in the form of savings is what translates to investments, for SMEs. And so there's certainly a lot of opportunities for us to be able to mobilize domestic resources, not just relying on foreign capital flows, but rather being able to mobilize domestic resources. We've done that significantly in pensions, but we can do that in the banking sector by banking the unbanked, getting everyone in. And looking at this, there's a lot of factors involved. So we've talked about poverty, the fact that people say I don't have a job. There's also the gender dynamics involved in this. So when people talk about financial inclusion, you actually need to some of the steps to take would be looking at gender disaggregated data to find out why are men behaving this way, why are the female folk behaving this way. So understanding human behavior is a significant part of it, and then with that you can actually tailor solutions that fit those that fit them as people.
So someone will be asking there, but we don't have banks in Nigeria. That's why are still unbanked. So people cannot access banks. Like in the hinterlands with what is going on now, people have to travel hours to the cities, to the state capitals to be able to access banks. And where these banks are available, you see that they'll tell you network issues and all of that. Don't you think that these are some of, how do we come out of these kind of barriers?
Yes, definitely. Also a very
And
good
the fact that people need to be literate as well to be able to enjoy financial inclusions. They have to be financially literate to partake in all of these financial system. How can individuals improve their knowledge?
Yeah, so you actually don't have to be literate in terms of reading.
They don't have to study finance.
No, you don't have to. You really don't have to. Financial service providers now based on local languages. If you visit an ATM, you actually have a choice of the language of operation. So that's very clear. I would also mention that you have agency banking now, you have mobile banking, you have payment service banks. So the authorities, the regulators have realized that the cost of having physical branch networks, in remote areas is actually challenging for a person who is profit oriented. So when I'm profit oriented, I my price needs to be able to meet my, I need to be able to meet my, have a handshake and break even. So a way of doing that is telcos. There's now the concept of payment service banks which has been introduced. So you have the telcos, being able to have like a mobile wallet. So your mobile number is almost like a bank account number. So we're going to say, we are at the base. A lot of growth in this sector. I am aware that MTN Bank sometime last year they commenced operations, and so there's certainly a lot of room for growth.
You can also call us on the 173136193. We're talking about financial inclusion today. Your payment services, perhaps the hitches you're experiencing, the difficulties, your challenges, or maybe if you have derived any benefit from there, you can also call us and share with us this evening. Financial inclusion is what we're talking about, and my guest on the program is Ebuka Ebemina. Ebuka Ebemina is the team lead strategy and governance in Financial Institution Training Center, FITC. You can also send us messages, uh, challenges you're experiencing. You can also do that here. 0817 313 6193. 0817 313 6193. You can call that number, or you can send us a message on WhatsApp via that same number and ask any question that you may have along this line. So Ebuka, you terms are how they are actually to financial inclusion. So tell us, what are these payment systems you're talking about, and why are they so important?
Yes, so absolutely, the payment systems, when we talk about that, we're referring to the channels, how you are able to consummate a transaction between a demand and someone who is expecting the cash. So basically, you're relying on networks, for example, and when we talk about networks, it's end to end. Yeah, so you're also relying on, of course, the physical, the point of sales terminals, the POSs. Recently, we did launch. Nigeria did launch a scheme to have domestic cards. So that's called Afrigo Pay. And it's really something which is commendable, I must say, because you find out that the international cards in the long run also lower the cost of payments. To also put into perspective, you have so many other countries which have also launched domestic cards, and they've seen significant growth in that. China has domestic cards. India also has domestic cards, and so it's a step in the right direction. And I believe that with such processes in place, it's only a matter of time before we achieve our financial inclusion targets.
While you were talking here, you made mention of certain things. You were talking about traditional banking. You also mentioned digital banking. You talked about agency banking. That's what we were talking about, being profit oriented. What banks could do if they want to do that. Are there differences amongst these systems of banking or these systems of financial inclusion? You might want to explain that to us, and the ways that people can benefit from them.
Yeah, so the what is critical in this is the fact that you essentially need a device, a mobile device. So
you'll be talking about internet?
No, not necessarily. You could have a phone which doesn't have to be a smartphone. For example, to carry out USSD transactions, you don't need a smartphone. You could just do your star something and it works. Yeah, you don't need the internet to do that. Nigeria recently launched the eNaira, which is a central bank digital currency. So to make payments using such a platform, it can also be enabled, to actually function offline. So a lot of these steps would certainly be taken to minimize the cost and minimize
website www.cfasocietyng.org. You can leave messages there, ask questions, and of course continue the conversation with CFA Society Nigeria. I want to say a very big thank you to our guest this evening, who is so much for your time on the program this evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
That's our show today. Join us again next for another episode Inspiration FM. But don't forget www.cfasocietyng.org. That's on the internet. You can get more information from there and even listen to the previous editions of this program as podcast on that platform. Smart Uzechi is my name. Thank you for listening.